Hey everyone, this is Jeff, and we are back. Episode 4 in our tutorial series, and we're now going to cover Sickbeard. So, what's Sickbeard? It bills itself as the Internet PVR. Sickbeard allows you to download TV show episodes, or an entire series, actually, if you wanted to. And it's smart enough to know when the next episode for the series that you're interested in will air. It then finds those episodes in Usenet, and then sends it to SAB to download. You can control the settings for what quality that you want to download, if you want HD or SD, what language you want, if you need subtitles, that sort of thing. After the download is finished, Sickbeard post-processes your files, so you can move the episodes from the SAB download structure into the library that you're going to point XBMC at. You can also download the box covers, fan art, plot information, all sorts of useful metadata. And if you needed to, rename the files to a naming convention that you can determine, but primarily that works best with XBMC. Okay, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. We're just going to go do it. So let's get out of here and let's get to installing Sickbeard. So this is the zip file. I downloaded it, extracted it. It creates its own directory here. And the files themselves are inside of this directory. What we're going to do is first we're going to rename this to just say Sickbeard. And then we're going to bring this to Program Files x86 in the same place that SAB is installed. We're going to drop Sickbeard. So we're going to take this and move it right here. And now the Sickbeard directory is under Program Files. We'll go into Sickbeard and we'll run it. Okay, the first time you run it, if you have Windows Firewall running on your system, you're going to get this prompt, and you definitely want to allow access, so you say allow access. And here we are at the Sickbeard interface. Now we haven't configured anything, so nothing's really going to happen here. Just remind you, we installed SAB on 8080. That's the port, and Sickbeard defaults to 8081. Which is where we want it. And this is the Sickbeard interface. It's just a web browser. We're going to go ahead and configure it. So we're going to start with General. Right now, the same thing with SAB. We want to launch the browser so that we can continue to configure it. In the future, you'll probably want to turn this off. Check for update. This every time you'll see it says it runs on startup, and then every 12 hours. Sickbeard can go look and see if there's a new version, and if there is, it will tell you that and update itself. There's a logs directory that'll actually be, remember, all locations are relative to this program file Sickbeard where we put it. So logs will show up underneath that. And you can change the port on the web interface, but the way we're going to do this, we're going to install SAB on 8080. Sickbeard on 8081, Couch Potato on 8082, and headphones on 8083, just to make things easy for us. You can certainly use whatever ports you want, assuming that they're open on your machine. And again, you can specify a username and password, and even HTTPS for connection to Sickbeard, but for this tutorial, we're not going to do that. And at the moment, we're not using the API for Sickbeard, so we don't need to make a change there. Search settings, we leave download propers checked. How often do you want it to go look? 60 minutes is probably fine. What is your Usenet retention? And we talked about this in the beginning videos. The Usenet retention for the provider we're using is 1200, so we're going to save that 1200 days. We're going to save that change. And then NZBs, we're actually going to say SAB because we're using SAB, obviously. And this is how you now communicate, set up Sickbeard to talk to SAB. So we don't have a username and password set up for SAB right now. If we did, we'd put them here. We need the API key, and we need the URL. So first off, we know that the URL is localhost 8080. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to put it just like it says here as an example. We're just going to make ours say 8080. But we don't need two HTTPs, so let's get rid of that. Okay, and then we need the API key. So we'll go into config General, and you'll see the API key right here. So we'll copy that. Back to Sickbeard, we'll paste in the API key, and it actually tells you, by the way, exactly where to go to get it. And then also remember, we created the TV category, which is the default in Sickbeard, and that's what we want. So let's go ahead and test that and make sure it works. And it says success, connected and authenticated. That's exactly what we want. And we're going to save changes. Now, you could use torrents, but I will tell you that the Usenet system is much, much more reliable and is the better method to go. If for whatever reason you're interested in torrents, you can click search torrents, and it even tells you, by the way, hey, we work better with Usenet. It's a link to here's why, and then you can have a directory that you want Sickbeard looking for torrent downloads. But we're not doing that. Save changes. Okay, back to the top. Search providers. All right, there's the Sickbeard index, which we're going to default, NZB matrix, and I'm not going to use Womble. Those are the priorities. We saved those changes. And then if you're using NZB matrix, you need to put in your username and your API key. I'm not going to put that in this video, but that's where you would do it. And if you have a provider that's not listed here for some reason, if you have a different provider, you would go ahead and add it, the name, the URL, and the API key if they use it. So we would have configured NZB matrix. You put your username and your API key, which you get from NZB matrix, and then save those changes. And now we look at post-processing. Okay, we need to do a couple things here to make this work correctly. First off, we want to go back to the Sickbeard directory that we copied. So now we're in Program Files x86 Sickbeard. And inside of this subdirectory, autoprocess TV, or folders if you like that name better, there's an autoprocess tv.config.sample document. And I actually renamed mine to config.txt so I could just double click it and open it. You can do the same thing. Just right click on it, select rename, and it'll actually have a .sample. If you put .txt, you'll be all set. Then just double click it, it opens, and it asks for the general information. If you've changed anything, like if you're changing the port, you need to change the port here. And if you're, for whatever reason, using a separate host name or an IP address, you'd put that here. Now, just to understand this, this is the connection to back into Sickbeard. Okay, so this would be your Sickbeard settings. All right, so we're not going to change anything there. We're going to leave it alone. We're going to actually take the SAB to Sickbeard. Well, you know what? We're going to take the whole directory. We're going to take all of this. We're going to copy it. And then if you recall, back in our folder structure, we'll reset up the library directory and the downloads directory. And inside of downloads, we created a directory called scripts. Inside of scripts is where we're going to paste all of these files. The real one that we're looking for is SAB to Sickbeard. This is what's going to allow SAB to tell Sickbeard when it's finished downloading something in the TV category. And in order to make that work correctly, one of the things that we need to do is get SAB to see that those files exist. So let me just double check. I don't believe this will actually work now. Ah, it did see it already. Never mind. So let me back up from where I was, right? We're sitting at the SAB main interface. We've copied the files into the scripts directory, so library download scripts, and we've already told SAB in our configuration under folders that that is the directory for post-processing scripts. Okay? So now we click on the categories tab in SAB, and under TV, the script we want to use is SAB to Sickbeard. And we just save that. And now what will happen is anytime a TV category item is added to the queue in SAB, when it's finished, it will automatically tell Sickbeard that it's complete. Okay, back to Sickbeard. We're in the post-processing configuration right here. If you're not using SAB, then you put in a TV download directory, or if they're not on the same PC. But they are, and SAB will communicate with Sickbeard, so we don't need to put anything here. Do we want to keep the original files after they've been processed? That's a yes or no question for you. Do we want to move the associated files, like if there's subtitles, etc.? Do we want to move them with the episode itself? We'll say yes. Do we want to rename episodes using the settings that we're going to have below? And the answer is yes. Okay. Save those changes. Now we'll do metadata type. If you just click the drop down and select XBMC, and I happen to like picking all of these, and I don't like using banners, so I don't select use banners. These are the files that will get created by Sickbeard in post-processing, and it will create the NFO files, the season file name. I'm deselecting them, so let me stop that. The season, whatever season it's supposed to be, file name, info files, etc., as well as fan art. We're going to save those changes. Okay, episode naming. What syntax and structure do you want to use? Again, I like this one, the season episode naming. And how do you want to do multi-episodes? And we're going to use extend. And the season folder format, do you want season and then 2 decimal places, so it'll do 01, 02, etc. And we want that. If you want to, you can change, whether you want periods instead of spaces in the file name, and if you want the quality to show up. So if I click quality, it'll add HDTV to the end of the file name, and I don't really think that that's necessary for myself, so I don't use that. Okay, let's just save all the changes on this page at once. So all of that's complete. And now notifications. If you want to, you can enable Sickbeard to automatically tell XBMC when new content has been downloaded. If we click this, you can tell it when it's downloaded. You can tell it to update the library. You can tell it to do a full library update. And then you'll put in the port and username and password that you've set up in XBMC to do that. We might do that later once we've got all the content running correctly. Right now, I'm not going to enable that, so we'll turn it off. There are a whole bunch of other notification options for you if you want to use them. If you're using Growl, you can get a notification on your system when that happens. You can even get a tweet. There's lots of choices here. I don't particularly use any of these, but they're here if you want them. Okay, so we're finished configuring. Let's go back to the home page. Now, how do you use Sickbeard? Well, you click Add Shows. Do you want to add a new show that you don't currently have any content for, or do you want to add an existing show? If you have TV series that maybe you've purchased the DVD for, and you've ripped those TV show DVDs, to disk, you can then use Add Existing Shows, point Sickbeard at that directory structure, and it will post-process them effectively. It'll add all of the content, the metadata, the plot information, all the background images, etc. We're going to do an Add New Show for this tutorial. So first, find a show. Let's just do something that's relatively common that we'll be able to find and we'll be able to grab an episode from, etc. Well, we're going to pick CSI Miami. So we'll select that. If it came back with things that you weren't exactly sure what the right name was, if you clicked this link, it'll take you to the TVDB and show you what TV show it's talking about, and you can verify it's the right one. Okay, we're going to say next. What's the parent folder? We're going to actually say new, and we're going to pick our library TV show folder. See library TV shows. Okay. And we're going to set that as the default for all TV shows in Sickbeard. Then we're going to say next. And now we're going to customize our options. We are going to use season folders. We want HD quality. And the initial status of missing episodes we are going to set to skipped. I'm going to show you why in a minute. So I'm going to default all of these, save defaults, and then I'm going to click Add Show. Now, Sickbeard is going to go out, talk to the TVDB, and get all sorts of metadata. I'm going to let that finish, and when it's done, we'll come back and talk about what to do next. Okay, Sickbeard's finished processing. We're just going to go ahead and click on the show, CSI Miami. And what you'll notice is that it contains information for all of the seasons that this show has available and every individual episode. And if you scroll down, you'll see that it knows the names of the episodes, the air dates. Right now, everything is tagged as skipped. We'll get to that in a minute. And it goes down, right? Every episode, every season. You could, should you just choose that you wanted to try and grab all of these, they may not be available, however, because 10 years of shows may not be available, and your provider might not have a retention period that long. But just as an example, let's go ahead and let's grab this TV show. So this was March 25th of 2012, and to change selected episodes to wanted. So we've only selected one. We're going to say go. And it's now changed color to wanted 1. And it's going to try and find that episode. If it finds it, it will send it to SAB. SAB will download it. And when it's completed being downloaded, Sickbeard will post-process it and put it into our final library directory. And this is where we would point XBMC for TV shows, see library TV shows. Okay, so I'm going to actually let that try and find the episode, and once that's done and it's sent it off to SAB, I'll show you that. When that's finished, we'll keep tracking it. So we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so if we go over to SAB, you can see that it's actually downloading. Here's CSI Miami, Season 1, Episode 18 in 720p because we asked for HD. It's only 32 days old, and it's currently downloading at 3.7 megabits per second. It is tagged with the category of TV, and it will run SAB to Sickbeard when it completes. And that's exactly what we want it to do, and that is the appropriate operation. So Sickbeard is finding things correctly and sending them to SAB. SAB is connecting to our Usenet provider and downloading things correctly. And the last thing for us to check here is that SAB sends it back to Sickbeard and moves the file appropriately. So if you'll bear with me, I'll come back in a moment when the download's complete, and we'll verify that Sickbeard's doing post-processing correctly. Okay, the download hasn't finished yet, but I thought I'd show you a couple other things while we have the time. If you'll recall, we have our library download structure, and we have complete and incoming directories. In the incoming directory, you can see that there's a CSI Miami episode currently downloading, and here are the actual files. SAB is going to take care of turning all of this into basically a movie or a TV show episode that you can watch. So it's in the process of downloading these things. When it finishes downloading, you'll see that these are multi-part RARs. Think of it like a multi-file zip. It'll put it all together, extract it as a single file, and it will eventually put it in the complete directory. And then Sickbeard will process it, and it'll show up here under CSI Miami. You'll notice Sickbeard has already gone and grabbed the info files, the thumbnails for all of the seasons, the fan art and the background. In fact, if we look at this fan art, you'll see that this is the one that it picked for CSI Miami, which is appropriate. And then the folder image shows kind of like a box cover for CSI Miami. All of that's already been done by Sickbeard and will be picked up in red by XBMC as well. Okay, we'll come back when the download finishes. One other quick tweak. If we go back to Sickbeard and quickly click on CSI Miami, you'll see that the episode that was tagged as watched is now set to snatched, downloaded. It's not completed yet, but you'll see in the top corner here that SAB is still downloading it. It's not quite finished. I just wanted you to see that as things progress, Sickbeard does update its status and let you know what's going on. All right, we'll come back one more time. All right, let's see if we can just catch the tail end of this. SAB is just about finished downloading. Once it finishes downloading, it will do its processing. So like I said, unpack the RAR, put it all together, verify it, etc., etc. So it has finished downloading. It's now doing the rest of the work. You'll notice that it's no longer in the incoming directory. It's now set to be, it's in complete. So there's the CSI Miami directory. And inside CSI Miami, we've got a season 10. And now we have an episode. And that episode actually is an MKV file. Let me just update the interface here. Okay, well, I made a mistake. Remember when I told you to rename the autoprocesstv.cfg sample file? Well, you needed to rename it, but you don't want to rename it to .text. I forgot to fix that. I'm going to quickly fix that now. So here I am in this library download scripts directory. You'll see that the file is named autoprocesstv.cfg.text, which I really can't have. I need to change that to autoprocesstv.cfg, and now this will work correctly because I inadvertently changed the name. Let me see if there's a way for us to tell it to process again. Let me see. Okay, since the configuration file was messed up on my part, SAB will not send it to Sickbeard directly, but we can fix that by doing manual post-processing for the time being. So enter the folder name containing the episode. We know where it is. It's library, downloads, complete, CSI Miami season 10. Okay, and we'll tell it to process. And this will work because I made the mistake. So don't change your autoprocess TV config file to .text. Just rename it to autoprocesstv.config and then move it the way I showed you. So here's the results. It post-processed the file the way it would normally have done automatically, and it's put everything in place. If we go back to home and click on CSI Miami, you'll see that this now shows the total file name and that the status is downloaded. And if we were to go over to our directory structure here and go to TV shows CSI Miami, there's a season 10 folder, and under season 10 there's our episode. Great. So that's functioning correctly. There's only one thing missing, and that's we don't want to keep these old files here. Once we've processed them, we want them to go away. So let's go back to our configuration and double check. Keep original files is checked. We don't want that. We want to uncheck it. Now, once it processes the files, it will not keep two copies. It will move the finished files into our library, and the downloads will be deleted. So in this case, I can delete the download myself. And from now on, Sickbeard will complete the configuration. Will delete the files itself. Okay, so Sickbeard's done. If there's another episode of that show coming, it will show up on the coming episodes page. At the moment, it doesn't appear that there is one. That should do it for Sickbeard. We will pick up in the next video and do the same basic thing with Couch Potato. See you again.